Hello, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Hello, art history enthusiasts and visual culture aficionados. It's me again, Miss M, and I'm back with yet another video. And today, get comfortable. Get comfortable because it's gonna be a long one. And that's kind of like what I'm known for here, long videos. And that's that. That's that. If you know, this is for people who like listening to long videos. So, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But here we are. I've been kind of what's the word for it? AWOL, MIA, whatever, for the last 5 days after I made this horrible Twin Peaks season 1 pilot episode video. The whole thing was black. All of the images, I was using Amazon Prime, and I did not know that Amazon Prime just blocks your ability to take screenshots or anything. I guess it's a copyright issue, but my God, did it sour my experience. But I'm leaving it up because I think I did some okay analysis in there. I think I fixed the problem, so when I do, the second episode, you'll be able to see images. So stay tuned for that, and I will be redoing this video. I'm gonna leave this up, and I think I'm just gonna leave it there as part of my collection. So if you like listening to videos, this is the one for you. But I'm gonna redo it after I'm done doing all the episodes for the first 2 seasons from 1990 and 1991, just to see, in hindsight, what it was. Because I believe that David Lynch was putting all kinds of clues in the very first, the pilot episode, Northwest Passage, that can maybe only be appreciated fully after you've seen the whole 2 seasons of the original series. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to get to work on that. I'm going to do another Understanding The Shining Part 17. I have been busy up the wazoo lately. I always say I'm busy, and I always am, more or less, but lately it's just been at a fever pitch. This week, a mess. This is probably the only video I'm going to do this week. And right up until the first week and a half in June is going to be a mess. I'm still going to try and do videos. Again, after this one, I'm going to try and do another Twin Peaks one and another Understanding the Shining one. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. And once again, get comfortable, get something to drink, get some popcorn, some candy, or healthy snacks. If you're low carb like me, go get you some peanuts or some, lettuce wraps with with luncheon meat and cheese. That's what I've been eating lately if I want a snack. And I'm happy to report, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I kept my New Year's resolution. I've been exercising at least 5 days a week since January 1st, and now I'm doing low carb, and I've lost a little over 20 pounds in that time. Each pound was hard fought, hard won, but I did it, and I'm going to keep doing it. So, not easy though. Not easy. You gotta be you gotta stick to it every day. You gotta go to the gym and burn calories every day. Now I'm doing low carb, lots and lots of salad with protein, some nice cheese like brie and some fun cheeses that I've been getting at the store. I am just thrilled. I'm enjoying it. I've been drinking a lot of sparkling water, a lot of La Croix sparkling water. Coffee with iced coffee with just a little bit of cream in it. I'm enjoying it actually. It's really not bad, and a Big Mac salad was delicious. So there, now you know. But anyway, what am I going to talk about today, you guys? What am I going to talk about today? I'm going to go back to my roots a little bit. As you can see, all these tabs up here. Yeah, let me count them. I don't even know how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. My God. So like you might be wondering, what am I going to talk about today? Let me show you the last slide. Or the last slide, not the slide, last slide. The last tab. Let me enlarge it for you, right? Let me just enlarge it, right? As you can see, there's the title on top. It says Know Your US Coins. It says the Washington Eagle Quarter. That is our last tab that we've got here. And take a good look at this damn thing. This particular post from this numismatist website, Coin World, is from 2015, and on one side of the coin there's George Washington in profile, and then on the other side it says United States of America. At the top and at the bottom it says $quarter, and then underneath United States of America it says E pluribus unum. There's the eagle. There's something that the eagle is clasping in its feet, its claws, and I'll explain what that is as we go through the video. And then down here is, I don't know what this is. This a laurel? I don't think it's an olive branch, but I think it might be a laurel. I need to maybe look that up. Maybe I'll take this up to like 30 tabs rather than 29. I'm going to take a break. I've got 29 tabs, and I don't know how quickly this is going to go or how slowly, but this is our last tab. And you might be wondering, what the hell is this? Well, like I said, I'm going back to my roots. What I really enjoy studying, art history. That was my inspiration for studying films and really analyzing films the way that I do. I mean, I don't know if anybody does it quite the way that I do. I'm not saying that I'm special, but I'm saying this is me. This is who I am, and this is how I analyze films in the context, or it's very similarly to art historical analysis as I understand it. Okay? And this is our last, so I'm sure this is what I used to do. I'm not much of a reader. I'm pretty convinced at this point that I have at least some dyslexia going on. And as a youngster, as a school person, I really hated reading. I really hated reading. And when I had to read something, especially like a novel for school, English class, I would read the last page first. I didn't want to go through all those pages like wondering, what's going to happen. No, I want to know right away. That's just the kind of person I am. And this is the last page of this presentation that I'm going to show you today. And you might be wondering, what's going on? Well, today I'm going to discuss this here. All right, Etruscan art. And again, you might be wondering, like, what the hell? What's going on? What are you doing, Miss M? I'm showing this to you for a reason, because on my channel, okay, for better or for worse, I do a lot of film analysis. I do hardly any art historical analysis or discussions of art history. I do have a couple of videos about like Mesopotamian art and stuff like that. But they're not, I thought that was going to be my main thing when I started this channel. I was wrong. But I believe that you need to understand at least somewhat art history in order to understand film, in order to understand cinema. And I'm concentrating on Etruscan art today because I've kind of been interested in it lately, and I have seen it as something that can help us understand, like the two main things that I'm covering on the channel as of late, Stanley Kubrick's films, and David Lynch's films, and maybe even like Quentin. I know I'm going to get back to Kill Bill eventually. Why Etruscan art? You shall see. You shall see. Now, as we go through, right? As we go through all of these tabs, I'll read you a little something, show you a little something on each of them, the things that I think are the most important, and you'll see where I'm going. Just enjoy the ride, Get your drink, get your snacks, get comfortable, put your feet up, find a nice comfortable place to sit or lie down or whatever, and just, like I said, like, enjoy whatever it is that I'm about to do here. I don't know how long this is going to take. Probably about 2 hours. Yes, I make long videos. So what's up with Etruscan art? What is it in the first place? Etruscan art, as it says here on Wikipedia, was produced by the Etruscan Civilization in central Italy between the 10th and 1st centuries BC. From around 750 BC, it was heavily influenced by Greek art, which was imported by the Etruscans, but always retained distinct characteristics. Particularly strong in this tradition were figurative sculpture in terracotta, especially life-size on sarcophagi or temples, wall painting and metalworking, especially in bronze. Jewelry and engraved gems of high quality were produced. Okay, Etruscan sculpture in cast bronze was famous and widely exported, but relatively few large examples have survived, etc., 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 etc. Okay. The great majority of survivals come from tombs. Why? Because those are protected spaces, which were typically crammed with sarcophagi and grave goods, which are things that people were buried with, and terracotta fragments of architectural sculpture, mostly around temples. Tombs have produced all the fresco wall paintings which show scenes of feasting and some narrative mythological subjects. Okay. Now, what's up with the Etruscans? Maybe you've heard of them. Maybe you've heard of them, but you've probably heard of them, the Etruscans from Etruria. You've heard of them maybe in the context of Roman culture and or Greek culture, because a lot of their, what we see from Etruscan art is very heavily borrowed or inspired from ancient Greece. Okay, and they're I think of the Etruscans, whether I hope it's not that I'm wrong about this, it's just that it's kind of my opinion based on what I've looked at. They seem to be this in-between culture between Greece and Rome. So when you maybe look up Roman ideas or art or mythology or whatever, much of that is based in Greek mythology and culture and politics and what have you. And people wonder, like, okay, how did that happen? Like, why are the Romans, were the Romans, not are, but why were the Romans so closely copying the Greeks? And how did that happen? Well, the Etruscans can provide us with at least a little bit of explanation regarding why the Romans seemed basically like, Greek culture 2.0, right? Now it says here the Etruscans emerged from the Villanovan culture, which I'm not going to cover here, but basically that is their version or their period of prehistory with regard to the Etruscans. They're a mysterious culture. Okay, for a couple of different reasons. Because we don't really understand what happened with the Etruscans. Where did they go? They didn't just vanish into thin air. They were either assimilated by the Romans, or another theory is that the Romans are actually the Etruscans. That's the opposite of that theory, which is interesting, and I don't know which one to believe. I don't think anybody really does. But it says, due to the proximity and or commercial contact to Etruria, other ancient cultures influenced Etruscan art during the Orientalizing period, such as Greece, Phoenicia, Egypt, Assyria, and the Middle East. Did you see that? Greece, Phoenicia, Egypt, Assyria, and the Middle East. That's a lot of influences. So what that tells you right away, especially with this Orientalizing period, is that the Etruscans were heavily involved in trade. Okay, that's why they were exposed to so many cultures, and their art definitely bears that influence. The Romans would later come to absorb the Etruscan culture, allegedly. Okay, some people say that the Etruscans actually conquered the Romans, not the other way around. I don't know what to believe. Anyway, the Romans would later come to absorb the Etruscan culture into theirs, but would also be greatly influenced by them and their art. Yeah. So the periods that we're talking about here. Now we start at 900 BC or BCE, right, before the Common Era. The Villanovan period lasted about 200 years, with the emphasis on funerary art, impasto pottery, geometric decoration, or shaped as hut urns, bronze objects, mostly small except for vessels, were decorated by molding or by incised lines. Small statuettes were mostly handles or other fittings for vessels. Okay, so we don't have a lot of kind of grand examples of art from the Villanovan period because, again, we're dealing with not like prehistory, but kind of like that area's version of prehistory, if that makes any sense. From 700 to 575 BC, we have the Orientalizing period, foreign trade with established Mediterranean civilizations like the ones that I just read to you, Greece, Phoenicia, Egypt, Assyria, the Middle East. Interested in metal ores, of Etruria and other products from further north led to imports of foreign art, especially that of ancient Greece, and some Greek artists immigrated. Decoration adopted a Greek and Near Eastern vocabulary with palmettes and other motifs, and the foreign lion was a popular animal to depict. So if you ever wondered where like the lion comes from as far as like the symbolism regarding royalty, the the Near East. So when they say the Near East, what do they mean? They mean Mesopotamia. They mean what we now call the Middle East. Okay. So all the again, this says Assyrians up here, Assyrians and the Middle East. That's what we're talking about. That's what was influencing them during this Orientalizing period. Yes, some Greeks, but the Near East as well. Like the lion. The Etruscan upper class grew wealthy and began to fill their large tombs with grave goods. So these ancient cultures were obsessed with death. They were obsessed with, what does it call here? Grave goods. I call them funerary goods. Things that were buried with the deceased. And that included a lot of different stuff. I mean, maybe the first image that comes to mind when you hear about that is like Egyptian tombs with all the loot in them, all of the stuff in an Egyptian tomb that wasn't unique to Egyptians. Like a lot of cultures did that at the time. Native Bukharo pottery, now using the potter's wheel, went alongside the start of a Greek-influenced tradition of painted vases, etc., etc. The facial features, the profile, almond-shaped eyes, large nose in the frescoes and sculptures, and the depiction of reddish-brown men and light-skinned women, influenced by archaic Greek art, followed the artistic traditions from the Eastern Mediterranean. So yes, this isn't like, this has nothing to do with race. In these depictions of human beings, if somebody at the time, and this goes back to ancient Egypt too. If you saw a depiction of like a tan-looking man and like a tan-looking person, and then next to that person you saw a very pale person, the tan person, the darker skinned person, you could very safely assume was male, and the light skin or the pale person was female. That's how they identified gender in their renderings of people. These images have therefore a very limited value for a realistic representation of the Etruscan population. Okay. 575 to 480 BC, the Archaic period. And when you think of archaic, maybe you've heard of the archaic smile in Greek art. That's basically what we're talking about here. Prosperity continued to grow during the Archaic period, and Greek influence grew to the exclusion of other Mediterranean cultures. So at this point, 575 to 480, they're more or less focused on copying or imitating Greek culture. Okay, saw the emergence of the Etruscan temple, which is again heavily influenced by the Greek temple, with its elaborate and brightly painted terracotta decorations and other large buildings. Figurative art included human figures and narrative scenes grew more prominent. The Etruscans adopted stories from Greek mythology enthusiastically. This is going to be important later. Paintings and fresco begin to be found in tombs, which the Greeks had stopped making centuries before, and were perhaps made for some other buildings. The Persian conquest of Ionia in 546 saw a significant influx of Greek artist refugees, especially in southern Etruria. Other early developments continued, and the period produced much of the finest and most distinctive Etruscan art. Then we move on to the classical and then later the Hellenistic period. This is where the Etruscans peaked in economic and political terms. That was 480 to 300 BC, the classical period. And the volume of art produced reduced somewhat in the 5th century BC, with prosperity shifting from the coastal cities to the interior, especially in the Po Valley. In the 4th century BC, volumes revived somewhat, and previous trends continued to develop without major innovators in the repertoire, except for the arrival of red figure vase painting, etc., etc. The Romans were advancing upon the Etruscans. This is what we're told. And the Romans were now picking off the Etruscan cities one by one, with Veii being conquered around 396 BC. Okay, and then we have the Hellenistic period, 300 to 50 BC, the Hellenistic or late phase. Over this period, the remaining Etruscan cities were all gradually absorbed into Roman culture, and especially around the 1st century BC, the extent to which art and architecture should be described as Etruscan or Roman is often difficult to judge during this Hellenistic period. Distinctive Etruscan types or of object gradually ceased to be made, with the last painted vases appearing early in the period and large painted tombs ending in the 2nd century. Styles continued to follow broad Greek trends with increasing sophistication and classical realism, often accompanied by a loss of energy and character. Bronze statues, now increasingly large, were sometimes replicas of Greek models. The large Greek temple pedimental sculpture groups of sculptures were introduced, but in terracotta. Okay. So it covers like all the different types of Etruscan art that there are available, at least that have been found: sculpture, wall painting, vase painting, bucchero ware, terracotta panels, metalwork, funerary art. And then we get down to this. Now you can look at this all on your own when you have the time. I'm going to leave you the links. But what I'm really, really, really interested in personally is art and religion. Okay? That's what I'm really interested in, because you'll see how this really, I think it relates to what I'm kind of focusing on my channel. Etruscan art was often religious in character, and hence strongly connected to the requirements of Etruscan religion, which I've opened that tab somewhere up here. We'll get to it. The Etruscan afterlife was negative, in contrast to the positive view in ancient Egypt, where it was but a continuation of earthly life, or the confident relations with the gods as in ancient Greece. So this is where they differed from the Greeks in that regard. Roman interest in Etruscan religion centered on their methods of divination and propitiating and discovering the will of the gods, rather than the gods themselves. Okay, you guys. I'm going to read that again because it's extremely important. Roman interest in Etruscan religion centered on their methods of divination and propitiating and discovering the will of the gods rather than the gods themselves, which may have distorted the information that has come down to us. Okay. Most remains of Etruscan funerary art have been found in excavations of cemeteries, as at Cerveteri, Tarquinia, Populonia, Orvieto, Vetulonia, Norcia, meaning that what we see of Etruscan art is primarily dominated by depictions of religion and in particular the funerary cult. Whether or not that is true, that is a true reflection of Etruscan art as a whole. Now, they are very concerned about propitiating and discovering the will of the gods rather than the gods themselves. Okay, that this is what I guess scholars and researchers and people who are concerned with figuring this kind of stuff out. This is the conclusion that they've come to. They wanted to know the will of the gods, and now this is extremely important in the context of what I believe is going on in both David Lynch and Stanley Kubrick's art, their films, their cinematic productions. The will of the gods. Okay? The will of the gods. I should just write a paper or something called The Will of the Gods. That's a marvelous title. But the will of the gods is important because the will of the gods, allegedly, according to these people at the time, or the people who are studying this, influences daily life, influences whether or not things are going to go your way or not. Okay, that's why divination, oracles, and discovering the will of the gods rather than the gods themselves is so important. Because I guess they use that. This is my assumption. This is what I'm leaning towards. They use that in order to justify what they were doing, whoever the ruling class was. Okay? I don't think for one second that like these people actually believed in their own bullshit. At least not at the elite levels, not, the priest class or the ruling class. No, I don't think they believe this nonsense. But they use it as their way of explaining their, I'll just say it, fuckery. Okay, and I think that David Lynch and Stanley Kubrick are very keenly aware of that too. So let me now I've read that to you. You can go through all this stuff, look at all the pictures on this page, read the stuff that I didn't read if it interests you. But let me go on to the next tab. Where are we here? Etruscan Civilization. This is another important page. The Etruscan civilization was developed by a people of Etruria in ancient Italy with a common language and culture who formed a federation of city-states, exactly 12 of them. That'll become important later. After conquering adjacent lands, its territory covered, at its greatest extent, roughly what is now Tuscany, western Umbria, and northern Lazio, as well as what are now the Po Valley, Emilia-Romagna, southeastern Lombardy, southern Veneto, and western Campania. The earliest evidence of a culture that is identifiably Etruscan dates from about 900 BC. This is the period of the Iron Age Villanovan culture, considered to be the earliest phase of Etruscan civilization. Okay, which itself developed from the previous late Bronze Age Proto-Villanovan culture in the same region. Okay, so this isn't the only reason it's important to know about like these dates and the Villanovan culture and the Proto-Villanovan culture and that they're Bronze Age is just to give you an understanding of how long this has been going on, at least in this context. Okay, Etruscan civilization endured until it was assimilated into Roman society. Assimilation began in the late 4th century BC as a result of the Roman-Etruscan Wars. It accelerated with the grant of Roman citizenship in 90 BC and became complete in 27 BC when the Etruscans' territory was incorporated into the newly established Roman Empire. Again, there are people who say that it's the other way around. I don't know who to believe. The territorial extent of the Etruscan civilization reached its maximum around 750 BC during the the foundational period of the Roman kingdom. Its culture flourished in three confederacies of cities, that of Etruria, Tuscany, Latium, and Umbria, that of the Po Valley with the Eastern Alps, and that of Campania. The League of Northern Italy is mentioned in Livy. Livy was a Roman historian, for, if you're wondering who that is. The reduction in Etruscan territory was gradual, but after 500 BC, the political balance of power on the Italian peninsula shifted away from the Etruscans in favor of the rising Roman Republic. Okay, let's see. Now, the Etruscan language, which is what they talk about here, very mysterious. It says here the Etruscan language remains only partially understood. There are some examples of it. Most of it is from inscriptions on works of art. But like larger things, or if they do have like documents of whatever form that are kind of longer, um, I'm not saying they're completely undeciphered, but there's a lack of understanding because it's such a mysterious language. It's influenced by Greek, and then it's also the influence, or one influence, of Latin, but the language itself has kind of been lost, or the understanding of it has been lost. They're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to figure it out, and that's what part of what makes this civilization so mysterious. Because again, a lack, not a lack of written records, but a lack of or no way of really being able to understand whatever written records do exist, makes it difficult to understand what this culture was really about. So art historians, scholars, researchers, what have you, base a lot of their understanding of the Etruscan culture on the art, the objects, and how they looked, and they try to kind of infer or deduce or what have you, why those things look that way. Okay, and they base that on their inferences or their deductions on why the things in Etruscan art look that way. They base it on the surrounding cultures, whether it's Greece, whether it's Rome, whether it's the Near East, whether it's Egypt, Assyria, what like the they analyze those cultures and then compare those, or rather compare the Etruscans to those cultures. I don't know if that's a perfect way of doing it, but I don't know. And I don't know what it is. Like, if they can understand Latin, maybe it's easier to understand Latin because, yeah, it's a dead language, but so much of it remains in modern usage with regard to root words and stuff like that. Same thing with Greek. Definitely same thing with Hebrew. Like, Greek is still a living language. Probably not exactly the way it was spoken in the ancient world. And maybe the same thing goes for Hebrew and Latin. But like I'm just wondering, I'm a suspicious kind of person. What is stopping them from understanding Etruscan language the way they understand Latin or Greek or even Egyptian hieroglyphs? Okay? I don't know. I don't know if I believe them regarding this story about not being able to understand the language thoroughly. To me, something stinks. But then again, I'm not a scholar, so don't quote me on any of that. Um, the Etruscan language remains only partially understood. In the political system, authority resided in its individual small cities, and probably in its prominent individual families. At the height of Etruscan power, elite Etruscan families grew very rich through trade with the Celtic world to the north and the Greeks to the south, and they filled their large family tombs with imported luxuries. Okay, so much of what we have from the ancient world, like items, object, things that we call art now, those are things that were found in tombs and graves. All right, so this is related to their religious beliefs. Yes, very much so. But it also, again, these things survive because they were buried and they weren't maybe exposed to the elements or whatever, thing that influence that ruins an object. It causes it to deteriorate completely, right? So that's why all of these archaeological digs and things into tombs and graves and what have you is so important, because things that maybe were exposed to the elements, a lot of those things simply couldn't survive because they were maybe made of perishable materials, as opposed to like stone or metal or what have you. And metal is perishable, but not the way that wood is, or something, something that's not as sturdy as a metal or a stone material. Anyway, um, etnonym and etymology, the Etruscans called themselves Rasena, which was shortened to Rasna or Rasna, with both etymologies unknown. In Attic Greek, the Etruscans were known as the Tyrrhenians, from which the Romans derived the names. Lord, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, but derivations of Tyrrheniums and mare Tyrrhenium, the Tyrrhenian Sea. So the sea to the west of the boot is called the Tyrrhenian Sea. Okay, and that's, as you can see there in the little pop-up. So that's still based on the Etruscans, that name, prompting some to associate them with the Teresh, one of the sea peoples named by the Egyptians. Okay, now, do you see where Etruria is or was? Tuscany, all the way up here, this darkened part of this little map over here. That's, if you think about ancient transportation methods, that's quite a way away from, Greece and the Greek islands, or the Near East, or Egypt, or whatever. Like, and this sea is still named after them, which is interesting. Okay. These people were very influential, but somehow it seems that their culture or even the language was maybe not wiped out, but it's looking that way. It's looking like, the cultures that followed the Etruscans wanted everybody to forget about them, in a significant way. Not forget about them completely, because Roman historians and scholars did mention the Etruscans. I don't know how frequently, but they were mentioned, and they were aware of the Etruscans and what have you. But there isn't like a very strong emphasis on them, as far as I can tell. I could be wrong. Anyway, the ancient Romans referred to the Etruscans as the Tusci, or Etrusci, singular. That's where Tuscany, I guess, comes from. Their Roman name is the origin of the term Toscana, which refers to their heartland, and Etruria, which can refer to their wider region. The term Tusci is thought by linguists to have been the Umbrian word for Etruscan, based on an inscription on an ancient bronze tablet from a nearby region. Okay, I'm going to skip through a lot of this. Interesting. As for the original meaning of the root tours, a widely cited hypothesis is that, like the word Latin, turris means tower, and comes from the Greek word for tower. On this hypothesis, the Tusci were called the people who build towers, or the tower builders. This proposed etymology is made the more plausible because the Etruscans preferred to build their towns on high precipices reinforced by walls. Oh. Alternatively, Giuliano and Larissa Bonfante have speculated that Etruscan houses may have seemed like towers to the simple Latins. See, this is part of the reason why they don't think that it was the Romans, or, whatever the Romans were originally, that they don't think the Romans conquered the Etruscans. It was more like vice versa, because the Etruscans were way more advanced than the Latins or the people who became the Romans. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna skip over this. Ancient sources. Uh, Literary and historical texts in the Etruscan language have not survived. Again, that's very suspicious to me. And the language itself is only partially understood by modern scholars. This makes modern understanding of their society and culture heavily dependent on how much later and generally disapproving Roman and Greek sources. Disapproving Roman and Greek sources. See what I mean? Something about the Etruscans really bugged these people. However, Rome seems to be just an extension of the Etrurian culture. I don't know what to make of this. Others maintain that they were indifferent. Okay, never mind all that. I can't go through all of this. That's crazy. But now you see why, maybe, or you have a better idea of why this culture is considered mysterious. Mysterious but influential. Okay, mysterious but influential. The expansion. Okay, you can read all of this on your own. Periodization of Etruscan culture. Again, they talk about how it began with the Villanovan culture and so on and so forth. And basically, their culture periods kind of mirror or mimic the same of the Greeks. Okay, archaic, classical, Hellenistic, whatever, right? The expansion, Etruscan League. This is how they were. That's how they organized themselves politically. According to legend, there was a period between 600 BC and 500 BC in which an alliance was formed among 12 Etruscan settlements, known today as the Etruscan League, Etruscan Federation, or Dodecapolis in Greek. According to a legend, the Etruscan League of 12 cities was founded by Tarchon and his brother Tyrrhenus. Tarchon left his name to the city of Tarquina, or Tarquini, as it was known by the Romans. Tyrrheus gave his name to the Tyrrhenians, the alternative name for the Etruscans. Although there is no consensus on which cities were in the league, the following list may be close to the mark: Aricium, Caesra, Clefsin, Curtun, Perusna, Pupluna, Veii, Tarkna, Vetluna, Volterra, Velsna, and Velk. Some modern authors include Rousselet. The league was mostly an economic and religious league, or a loose confederation, similar to the Greek states. During the later imperial times, when Etruria was just one of many regions controlled by Rome, the number of cities in the league increased by 3. This is noted on many later gravestones from the 2nd century BC onwards. Okay. According to Livy, again, the Roman historian, the 12 city-states met once a year at the Fanum Volumnae at Volsini, where a leader was chosen to represent the league. Okay, there were 2 other Etruscan leagues, Lega dei Popoli, that of Campania, the main city of which was Capua, and the Po Valley city-states in northern Italy, which included Bologna, Spina, and Adria. All right, the possible founding of Rome. This is incredibly important. So important that I'm going to have to take a break. I don't know if I'll go through very much of this other stuff because we already covered art and music in the other main article. Language, I think I have an open tab for that. Architecture, not really that much concerned with architecture at this point. Religion, again, I think I have a tab open. Military, cities, family, government. Maybe I'll read a little bit of that. But I do want to talk about the possible founding of Rome. I will be right back, you all. Okay, I'm back. Now, bear with me with this last little bit of this, and then we're going to get to some more fun stuff, okay? Anyway, the possible founding of Rome. Okay, those who subscribe to a Latin foundation of Rome followed by an Etruscan invasion typically speak of an Etruscan influence on Roman culture, that is, cultural objects which were adopted by Rome from neighboring Etruria. The prevailing view is that Rome was founded by Latins who later merged with Etruscans. In this interpretation, Etruscan cultural objects are considered influences rather than part of a heritage. Rome was probably a small settlement until the arrival of the Etruscans, who constructed the first elements of its urban infrastructure, such as the drainage system. The main criterion for deciding whether an object originated at Rome and traveled by influence to the Etruscans or descended to the Romans from the Etruscans is date. Many, if not most, of the Etruscan cities were older than Rome. If one finds that a given feature was there first, it cannot have originated at Rome. A second criterion is the opinion of the ancient sources. These would include that certain institutions and customs came directly from the Etruscans. Rome is located on the edge of what was Etruscan territory. When Etruscan settlements turned up south of the border, it was presumed that the Etruscans spread there after the foundation of Rome, but the settlements are now known to have preceded Rome. Interesting. Etruscan settlements were frequently built on hills, the steeper the better, and surrounded by thick walls. According to Roman mythology, when Romulus and Remus founded Rome, they did so on the Palatine Hill according to Etruscan ritual. That is, they began with a pomerium, or sacred ditch. Then they proceeded to the walls. Romulus was required to kill Remus when the latter jumped over the wall, breaking its magic spell. The name of Rome is attested in Etruscan in the form of Ruma X, meaning Roman, a form that mirrors other attested ethnonyms in that language with the same suffix X. Velsna X, someone from Volsini, and Sveama X, someone from Sovana. This in itself, however, is not enough to prove Etruscan origin conclusively. If Tiberius is from Befariae, then Ruma would have been placed on the Thafar, or Tiber, River. A heavily discussed topic among scholars is who was the founding population of Rome. In 390 BC, the city of Rome was attacked by the Gauls, and as a result may have lost many, though not all, of its earlier records. Interesting. So the destruction of history is the destruction of culture. We know this. Later history relates that some Etruscans lived in the Visus Tuscus, the Etruscan quarter, and that there was an Etruscan line of kings, albeit ones descended from a Greek Demaratus of Corinth, that succeeded kings of Latin and Sabine origin. Etruscophile historians would argue that this, together with the evidence for institutions, religious elements, and other cultural elements, proves that Rome was founded by the Etruscans. The true picture is rather more complicated, not least because the Etruscan cities were separate entities which never came together to form a single Etruscan state. Furthermore, there were strong Latin and Italic elements to Roman culture, and later Romans proudly celebrated these multicultural influences on the city. Under Romulus and Numa Pompilius, the people were said to have been divided into 30 curiae and 3 tribes. Few Etruscan words entered Latin, but the names of at least 2 of the tribes, Rhamnus and Luceris, seem to be Etruscan. The last kings may have borne the Etruscan title Iucumo, while the regalia were traditionally considered of Etruscan origin. This is important, you guys. Listen up. The regalia were traditionally considered of Etruscan origin. The golden crown, the scepter, the toga palmata, a special robe, the sella curialis, curule chair. This is what it looks like. And above all, the primary symbol of state power, the fasces. The latter was a bundle of whipping rods surrounding a double-bladed axe carried by the king's lictors, Lictors. Okay, an example of the fasces are the remains of bronze rods and the axe from a tomb in Etruscan Velutonia. This allowed archaeologists to identify the depiction of a fasces on the grave stele of Avele Felusque, who is shown as a warrior wielding the fasces. The most telling Etruscan feature is the word populus, which appears as an Etruscan deity, Fufluns. Okay, did you hear me? So this is why they're kind of thinking, like I just read to you, that it wasn't the Romans who conquered the Etruscans, it's really the other way around. And like all the regalia that is associated with Rome and onward, as it says here, the golden crown, the scepter, the toga palmata, the curule chair, and above all the primary symbol of state power, the fasces. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Now you see the Capitoline wolf. We're going to see that a former Etruscan walled town, Civita di Bagnoregio. Sorry. Now, doesn't this a former Etruscan walled town? Doesn't this remind you very strongly? This here that I'm circling. Doesn't this remind you very strongly of the Acropolis in Greece? Okay, and that's just, Acropolis just means the high city. So all of these ideas permeate all of these ancient cultures, whether it's Mesopotamia, whether it's the palace at Knossos on the island of Crete, where the labyrinth was, right? Allegedly King Minos, Greece with the Acropolis and probably similar elevated temple kind of complexes, all the way through to Etruria and Rome. So something about an elevated place. Again, in The Shining, we have the Overlook Hotel is on a mountaintop. Okay? In Twin Peaks, well, the town is like a mountaintop. You gotta climb up there. It's Twin Peaks. That's the peaks of mountains, I assume. Right? And this regalia, especially the fasces, we're going to concentrate on that quite a bit from this point onward. Again, you can look at Roman families of Etruscan origin. I'm kind of like siding with this theory about the possible founding of Rome, and it was the Etruscans that did it rather than, the Latins or the whatever. I don't know. What say you? Roman family, yeah, already. Government, we don't really need to get into that. But it is believed that the Etruscan government style changed from total monarchy to oligarchic republic. What's an oligarchic republic? A conceptual form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. These people may or may not be distinguished by one or several characteristics such as nobility, fame, wealth, education, or corporate, religious, political, or military control. So when you hear, like in the modern usage of the word oligarch, that's what it is. And people talk about these oligarchs now, especially with regard to Russia, as like something that's weird. No, it's not weird. It's been going on since the ancient times. Okay. So what from monarchy to oligarchic republic. Okay, cool. Family, military, again, cities, religion, we'll cover that later. And again, the Chimera of Arezzo, it has an inscription on it. Etruscans had something that they called talking objects. We'll get to that later, I hope. But so I will again leave this for you to look at on your own. Now, it took me a whole hour almost to get through all of this. Let's get to the fun part. I think the fun part. Check it out. This, if you're interested in the rulers of the Roman Empire and the Roman Republic, this is it. Okay, over a millennium of leadership, good and bad. Here are all the names. The kingdom, like we talked about a second ago, that kind of mirrors Etruscan development of their civilization. The kingdom, the republic, the empire. Check it out. Kingdom of Romulus, the first mythical king, and then Numa Pompilius, and so on and so forth. Okay, into the Roman Republic, and then we, get to Julius Caesar, and then we have the Roman Empire, the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the year of the four emperors, the Flavian dynasty, etc., etc. You can, this is a good resource if you just want a cute little cheat sheet, like flashcard kind of thing, to sort of just get you up to speed if you want the whole succession of all of these rulers in ancient Rome. I put that there just for your convenience. Now, the Metropolitan Museum. Those of you who are lucky enough to live in New York, I know at least one of my watchers and listeners lives there. Oh, look at all this. You can go to the Met and look at all of these beautiful things. I know they're associated like with the Met Gala and all that pomp and everything, but they really do have beautiful things there. And they have an article on the Met's Museum, the Heilbrunn timeline of art history, and they've got so many essays about so many different cultures and periods and what have you. And I'm not going to read this because it's probably just going to be a regurgitation of a lot of the stuff I already read to you, but that's a resource for you. And also Etruscan language and inscriptions. Do I have? No, that's something else. We'll get to that in a minute. Language and inscriptions. This is where they talk about, I think they talk about the talking objects here, which is, what is a talking object? Basically something with an inscription on it. And that, whoops, no, never mind. Oh, Lord. It doesn't matter, but this is a good example, I guess. A talking object is something that has an inscription on it, and that means that the object is trying to tell you about itself. Okay, so we see a lot of these with Etruscan art. Ooh, I'm gonna provide you the link for the original thing that was here, not the thing that messed up. This I wanted to show you because I'm a big fan of Erin Parsons. She's like a famous celebrity makeup artist, and she's kind of a historian in her own right with regard to cosmetics and just beautification throughout the ages. This is a bronze cista toiletries box. So this is what people would keep their, stuff in. Toilet, personal beautification materials in this box. And they all look, I guess they look like modern day trash cans, but they're not. This is a bronze one. And I think I see an inscription on this one, so that makes it a talking object. And it has a lid with a little sculpture on top, probably something to do with their mythology. And you can see like a close-up of the lid here. Okay, is that a goddess or a god or something like that? Small cista with a solid cast handle of a seated boy. Okay, sutina, inscribed in Etruscan letters on the body and the lid, indicating the object was made for a tomb. Okay, so this isn't something that would have just been kept by someone as like a regular daily thing where they kept their toiletries. No, this was made for the afterlife. Interesting. Also wanted to show you this, also in the context of like the history of makeup and cosmetics and whatever. An alabastron, a perfume vase. So amazing. Cut from one piece of stone The vase consists of the container in the form of a woman holding a lotus flower and a base embellished with 4 female heads. The work is an Etruscan response to perfume flasks with the busts of women that originated in the Near East and spawned adaptations in Cyprus, East Greece, and Etruria. The concept of decorating 4 sides of a vessel ultimately derives from the East as well. Related works are exhibited in the Belfort Court on the main floor. Again, I'm fascinated by stuff like this. It's pretty, it's interesting, it's very old. Look at this. I'm just wondering if this also has to do with some kind of magic. Like, did they, the images that they chose, the inscriptions that they chose, were they trying, when they created an item, any kind of object, any kind of thing that we would now call art, these were, was this a sutina? Was this made for a tomb, or was it made for personal daily use? I don't know, but I kind of get the feeling that putting these images from mythology or whatever on these items, maybe it was a form of magic. Or they were trying to do magic by putting artwork on these vessels of various kinds. In this case, things to do with beautification. Okay, so there's that. Now, here we are. Jupiter. Jupiter. Mythology. Maybe you've heard of him. Jupiter, also known as Jove. There, if you've heard the phrase "by Jove," that's who they're talking about. Jupiter is the god of the sky and thunder, and king of the gods in ancient Roman religion and mythology. Jupiter was the chief deity of Roman state religion throughout the Republican and imperial eras until Christianity became the dominant religion in the empire. In Roman mythology, he negotiates with Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome, to establish principles of Roman religion such as offering or sacrifice. Gershom, I hope you're listening. Jupiter is usually thought to have originated as a sky god. His identifying implement is the thunderbolt, and his primary sacred animal is the eagle. Eagle, which held precedence over other birds in the taking of auspices, and became one of the most common the most common symbols of the Roman army. See Aquila, we will see Aquila. The 2 emblems were often combined to represent the god in the form of an eagle holding in its claws a thunderbolt, frequently seen on Greek and Roman coins. As the sky god, he was a divine witness to oaths, the sacred trust on which justice and good government depend. Many of his functions were focused on the Capitoline Hill, where the citadel was located. In the Capitoline Triad, he was the central guardian of the state with Juno and Minerva. His sacred tree was the oak. The Romans regarded Jupiter as the equivalent of the Greek Zeus, and in Latin literature and Roman art, the myths and iconography of Zeus are adapted under the name of Jupiter. In the Greek-influenced tradition, Jupiter was the brother of Neptune and Pluto, the Roman equivalents of Poseidon and Hades, respectively. Each presided over one of the 3 realms of the universe: sky, the waters, and the underworld. The italic Diespiter was also a sky god who manifested himself in the daylight, usually identified with Jupiter. Tinia is usually regarded as his Etruscan counterpart. Now, like I said, I believe, this is my belief, I could be wrong, but based on what I've read, I think that Jupiter became Jupiter by first being Zeus and then being Tinia, the Etruscan counterpart, and then finally he became the Roman Jupiter. I could be wrong, I don't know. He has a huge role in the state. Okay, the Romans believed that Jupiter granted them supremacy because they had honored him more than any other people had. Jupiter was the fount of the auspices upon which the relationship of the city with the gods rested. He personified the divine authority of Rome's highest offices, internal organization, and external relations. His image in the republican and imperial capital bore regalia associated with Rome's ancient kings and the highest consular and imperial honors. Okay, the consuls swore their oath of office in Jupiter's name and honored him on the annual ferie of the capital in September. Interesting. To thank him for his help and to secure his continued support, they sacrificed a white ox with gilded horns. Oh my. A similar sacrificial offering was made by triumphal generals who surrendered the tokens of their victory at the feet of Jupiter's statue in the Capitol. Some scholars have viewed the triumphator as embodying or impersonating Jupiter in the triumphal procession. So triumphal, this is when they would win like a battle of some kind. Jupiter's association with kingship and sovereignty was reinterpreted as Rome's form of government change. Originally, Rome was ruled by kings. After the monarchy was abolished and the republic established, religious prerogatives were transferred to the patres, the patrician ruling class. Nostalgia for the kingship, affectatio regni, was considered treasonous. Those suspected of harboring monarchical ambitions were punished, regardless of their service to the state. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to go through all of this. There's a lot. Jupiter and religion in the succession of the plebs. Or plebes. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that perfectly. What else do we have? Myths and legends. A dominant line of scholarship held that Rome lacked a body of myths in its earliest period, or that its original mythology has been irrecoverably obscured by the influence of Greek narrative tradition. Again, I think the Etruscans had something to do with this. I don't know. After the influence of Greek culture on Roman culture, Latin literature and iconography reinterpreted the myth of Zeus in depictions and narratives of Jupiter. In the legendary history of Rome, Jupiter is often connected to kings and kingship. All right. Cult sacrifices. Again, look at this. Sacrificial victims, hostiae, or I guess that's where the word hostage comes from, offered to Jupiter were the ox, which is a castrated bull, the lamb on the Ides, the Ovis Idulius, and the wether, a castrated goat or castrated ram on the Ides of January. This is really interesting to me. Especially in the context of what I'm going to talk about later. Okay, the animals were required to be white. This goes back to the Minotaur and Minos' wife kind of bearing the Minotaur after her coupling with the bull of heaven. I don't know, y'all. Think about it. The question of the lamb's gender is unresolved. Okay, doesn't matter. While a sacrificial lamb for a male deity was usually male. Okay. Doesn't matter. I'm not really interested in that much detail. Temples. Lots of temples to Jupiter were built. Okay? Lots of them. Religious calendar. You can go through all of this on your own. This is more specialized information. I'm thinking of general stuff because of what I'm going to try and show to you. Okay, so Jovian theology, Capitoline triad, all of this stuff. Trifunctional hypothesis is applied to Roman religion. So all the gods and what they were in charge of, I guess. Like Venus is in charge of human fertility, Jupiter's sovereignty, judicial, anything else, I don't know. So this is a cute little chart, okay. Interesting. Jupiter and Minerva, Juno and Fortuna, Janus, Saturn, The Latins considered Saturn the predecessor of Jupiter. Anyway, remember when I was doing one of my videos on Twin Peaks and I said Saturn is the father of Jupiter and Uranus is the father of Saturn, and that's where we get Venus from. Uranus's castration by Saturn. Then the foam is Uranus's sperm, and that Venus is associated. I told you all about that when I was covering the opening credits of Twin Peaks. Okay, so anyway, you guys can read all of this, right? Coins are going to become really important real quick, so stay tuned. Okay, so we have Jupiter, and again, Tinea is Jupiter in the Etruscan tradition. So I do, in my opinion, we get Roman Jupiter from Etruscan Tinea, and Etruscan Tinea comes from Greek Zeus. Okay, let's keep it moving. Zeus, here he is. Sky and thunder god in ancient Greek religion, who rules as king of the gods on Mount Olympus. His name is a cognate with the first element of his Roman equivalent Jupiter. His mythology and powers are similar, though not identical, to those of Indo-European deities such as Jupiter, Perkunas, Perun, Indra, Diaos, and Zeus. Zeus is the child of Kronos and Rhea. Okay, you can read all of this on your own. I just wanted to show you this page for comparison. Here's his symbols. Okay, so Zeus's symbols, very similar to Jupiter's symbols. Thunderbolt, eagle, bull, and the oak tree. His day is Thursday. That's why in French it's called jeudi. Okay? Interesting. Interesting. Next tab, Baal. Okay? Why am I showing you this? Well, where's the thing? Hold on. It was over here. Ah, yes, here it is. So you get this on the page for Jupiter in mythology. And this sidebar on the right. Scroll down and you'll see this. Personal information. Parents, siblings, consort, children. Okay, cool. Equivalents. Greek equivalent, Zeus. Norse equivalent, Thor. Etruscan equivalent, this is why we're kind of mostly here today, Etruscan culture, Tinea. Hinduism equivalent, Indra and Diaos, Pita. Canaanite equivalent, El or Baal. Mesopotamian equivalent, there's a bunch of them, but Anu, Enlil, Hadad, Marduk. Hurrian equivalent, Teshub. Proto-Indo-European equivalent, Diaos Peter. Okay, you guys, let me go back to the Baal. Okay, Baal or Baal was a title and honorific meaning owner, lord, in the Northwest Semitic languages spoken in the Levant during antiquity. From its use among people, it came to be applied to gods. Scholars previously associated the theonym with solar cults and with a variety of unrelated patron deities, but inscriptions have shown that the name Baal was particularly associated with the storm and fertility god Hadad and his local manifestations. The Hebrew Bible includes use of the term in reference to various Levantine deities, often with applications towards Hadad, who was described as a false god. Okay? That use was taken over into Christianity and Islam, sometimes under the form of Beelzebub in demonology. The spelling of the English term Baal derives from the Greek Baal, which appears in the New Testament and Septuagint, and from its Latinized form, Baal, which appears in the Vulgate. These forms in turn derive from a vowel-less Northwest Semitic form, Phoenician and Punic. These forms, the word's biblical sense as a Phoenician deity and false gods generally were extended during the Protestant Reformation to denote any idols, icons of the saints, or the Catholic Church generally. Wow. In such context, it follows the anglicized pronunciation and usually omits any mark between the two A's. In close transliteration of the Semitic name, the ayin is represented as Baal. Okay. What in the world is going on? Hmm? If you're like, maybe if you're um into conspiracy theory literature, you've maybe heard of this deity. Okay? His symbol, the bull, the ram, and the thunderbolt. Oh, they don't mention an eagle. Eagles are associated with Zeus and Jupiter, which is kind of why we're here. But this is interesting to me. Okay? I don't know if you can see why it's interesting to me, but hopefully you will by the time I'm done. Like I said, this is going to be a long video. Get comfortable. In the Northwest Semitic languages, Ugaritic, Phoenician Hebrew, Amorite, and Aramaic, the word Baal signified owner and by extension lord, a master or husband. Cognates include the Akkadian Belu, Amharic Baal, and Arabic Baal. I can't pronounce these things. Baal and Baal still serve as the words for husband in modern Hebrew and Arabic, respectively. They also appear in some contexts concerning the ownership of things or possession of traits. The feminine form, Baalach, meaning mistress, is the sense of a female owner or lady of the house, and still serving as a rare word for wife. Suggestions in early modern scholarship also included comparisons with the Celtic god Belenus. However, this is now widely rejected by contemporary scholars. Okay, so just stay with me and you'll see how this all kind of like whirlpools into an understanding of The Shining, Twin Peaks, possibly also Eraserhead and Eyes Wide Shut, and a lot of like Lynch and Kubrick productions. Okay, let me get down to this one. Okay, Judaism. Baal appears about 90 times in the Hebrew Bible in reference to various gods. The priests of the Canaanite Baal are mentioned numerous times, most prominently in the first book of Kings. Many scholars believe that this describes Jezebel's attempt to introduce the worship of Baal entire Melkart to the Israelite capital Samaria in the 9th century BCE. Against this, Day argues that Jezebel's Baal was more probably Baal Shamim, the Lord of the Heavens, a title most often applied to Hadad, who is also often titled just Baal. Okay. Interesting, right? Interesting. Uh, very, very interesting. This. Okay, I'm back. And I had another interruption. But I'm back, and my interruption happened just exactly when I was about to start talking about this here that you see before you on the screen. Mm. Um, I don't know if that's like some kind of divine force or whatever, but here we are. And I mean, I won't talk about this a whole lot because I I don't know if I have, the qualifications to be able to really talk about this. You can read this on your own, this part of the article regarding Baal, but go ahead and read it. Make of it what you will. I'm not so much concerned with this, although it is an important part of what I believe is this puzzle that we're all trying to solve. Um, it just kind of explains that the term Baal just simply means Lord, and then the way that the Lord or God is referred to in it says here, there's another page you can look at, names of God in Judaism. Please go ahead and look at that. You will learn something, I promise you. But I'm not so much concerned with that. I'm concerned with Baal Berith here. Okay, the Lord of the Covenant. And that was a god worshipped by the Israelites when they went astray after the death of Gideon, according to the Hebrew scriptures. Okay? The same source relates that Gideon's son yada 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 yada. Ha 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 ha. Basically, what I'm driving at here is this Baal character, this Baal figure or god, who is the, what did it say? The Canaanite equivalent to Jupiter and Zeus. This is something that the Israelites were not meant to worship, and they did it when they went astray. Okay? So that's a no-no. All right? Now, is this what we're fighting? Is this is, and I've communicated with Gershom about this. Is this what Stanley, our Stanley, and now our David are letting us know that we need to be aware of as far as the salvation of humanity? Is this is this the enemy of humanity? Baal, Jupiter, Zeus, what have you. It doesn't matter what name this deity bears in whatever culture or tradition or whatever. Is this what we're fighting against? Again, read up on this. You'll see kind of what I'm talking about. Baal, it means Lord, but specifically in the context of like the Canaanites and what have you, it's the equivalent of, again, Jupiter / Zeus. What's going on? I've already taken up a lot of time, but what's going on? This is what interests me, and this is what I think that Lynch and Kubrick are pointing to with all of their symbolism. Remember, you can enter the Black Lodge as a mortal only during the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. That's not an accident. They didn't, Lynch and Mark Frost, I think they're the writers of Twin Peaks. They didn't pick that just randomly. Jupiter and Saturn, they didn't pick that just randomly. Okay, well, let's keep it moving. The temple in Jerusalem, read about this. Okay, this is important. What else do I have here? The siege of Jerusalem. Okay, so there's the temple. Now, a lot of people, there's the first temple and the second temple. The first temple was what is referred to frequently as Solomon's temple. Okay, and that was destroyed. And then a second temple was built, later known as Herod's temple. And it was reconstructed in Jerusalem between 516 BCE and 70 CE. It replaced Solomon's temple. And that was destroyed too. The second temple was destroyed too. Okay, who destroyed it? The Romans. I think it was the Romans. What am I saying? No. The second temple, yeah. 70, yeah. Herod's temple. I'm pretty sure it was destroyed by the Romans. Oh my God, I hope I'm not wrong. Yeah, the siege of Jerusalem. That's right. That's when it was destroyed. Was the decisive event of the First Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 73 CE, in which the Roman army, led by future Emperor Titus, besieged Jerusalem, the center of Jewish rebel resistance in the Roman province of Judea. Following a 5-month siege, the Romans destroyed the city and the second Jewish temple. Okay? Oh no, that's later. What was the second temple replaced with by the Romans? A temple to Jupiter. I'm going to leave all of these links in the description so you can go and research this on your own. I suggest very strongly that you look at all of these pages, whether it's the page about Baal, the page about the Temple of Jerusalem in general, the first and the second temple, the siege of Jerusalem, and what happened and why. And the Roman army did this like 3 days before Passover. Seriously. Oh my goodness. And they replaced the second temple with a temple dedicated to the Roman god, Jupiter also known as Zeus, also known as Baal. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, again, read all of these, look through all of these. You will learn something that might change you as a person, because they don't teach this in school. They're not going to teach you this in your history class, in your Roman history class. No. I don't remember hearing about it or learning about it in elementary school, junior high school, college. No. For some reason, they don't want us knowing about this. I don't know why. This is important. This directly affects the shaping of the world that we live in, but they don't tell us about it. No. Okay, let me keep it moving. Okay, the fasces. Okay, remember when I said, when we were looking at Etruscan Civilization, and where's the thing? Ay. Is it why can't I just find the... Oh yeah, here it is. The regalia. It includes, above all, the primary symbol of state power, the fasces. Now this is from Etruscan Civilization. This is where we get the fasces, and I think the eagle. Okay. The eagle is very prominently featured in Stanley's work, in, the movie that I concentrate on the most, The Shining. We see that eagle a couple of times. And from what I talked about in this video with the blackened screen, I'm so embarrassed about that, but whatever. We also see the eagle in Twin Peaks. The fasces. Let me explain to you about the fasces. From the Latin word fascis, meaning bundle, is a bound bundle of wooden rods, sometimes including an axe, occasionally two axes, with its blade emerging. The fasces is an Italian symbol that had its origin in the Etruscan civilization and was passed on to ancient Rome, where it symbolized a magistrate's power and jurisdiction. The axe, originally associated with the labrys, the double-bitted axe, originally from Crete, is one of the oldest symbols of Greek civilization. To the Romans, it was known as a bipenis. Oh dear. The image has survived in the modern world as a representation of magisterial or collective power, law, and governance. The fasces frequently occurs as a charge in heraldry. It is present on the reverse of the U.S. Mercury dime and other coins, and behind the podium in the United States House of Representatives, and it was the origin of the name of the National Fascist Party in Italy, from which the term fascism is derived. During the first half of the 20th century, both the fasces and the swastika, each symbol having its own unique ancient religious and mythological associations, became heavily identified with the fascist political movements of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. During this period, the swastika became deeply stigmatized, but the fasces did not undergo a similar process outside of Italy. The fasces remained in use in many societies after World War II due to its already having been adopted and incorporated into the iconography of numerous governments outside Italy prior to Mussolini. Such iconographical use persists in governmental and various other contexts. In contrast, the swastika remains in common usage only in Asia, where it originated as an ancient Hindu symbol, and in Navajo iconography, where its religious significance is entirely unrelated to and predates the early 20th century European fascism. I said when I read Navajo because Navajo designs and Navajo artwork are supposed to be very prevalent in the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. Interesting. Symbolism. The fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe. And if you're wondering what kind of wood the fasces rods are made of, it's usually elm or birch. Was a grouping of all the equipment needed to inflict corporal or capital punishment. Okay, so corporal punishment is just like, like what you would expect with a rod, like a caning, and capital punishment. I think that literally means beheading, and that's what you would use an axe for. So, in ancient Rome, the bundle was a material symbol of a Roman magistrate's full civil and military power, known as imperium. They were carried in a procession with a magistrate by lictors, and lictors were the ones who just carried these. A Roman civil servant who was an attendant and bodyguard to a magistrate who held imperium. They carried the fasces and at times used the birch rods as punishment to enforce obedience with magisterial commands. And I don't think, and the consuls were referred to as 12 fasces as literary metonym. Beyond serving as insignia of office, it also symbolized the republic and its prestige. Why are there exactly 12 rods in a fasces bundle? Because of the 12 Etruscan city-states. That's, again, the fasces, Roman fasces, and all of the other ones come to us from the Etruscan culture. That's why I started with the Etruscans. That's why I'm going to end with the Etruscans too. Okay, so again, look at this. Earliest depiction of a fasces. Look, this is a double-headed axe. Again, the labyrinth. Think labyrinth from, again, King Minos, Crete, etc. And the Minotaur and the whole thing. Okay, again, it has United States down here. We're going to see a lot of this. You can see a lot of this. You just have to look at all of it. Look, take out the money from your wallet. It'll have possibly a fasces on there. I just wanted to show you one. Insignia of official authority in ancient Rome. The name derives from the plural form of the Latin fascis, bundle. Okay? Here's a picture of what it looks like. The axe blade is very prominent. Okay? Again, all of this is going to be in the description. Etruscan language. I talked already a little bit about this, so I don't want to be redundant, but the Etruscan language seems to have been, in my opinion, systematically, maybe not wiped out, but ignored. For whatever reason, I don't know. If as I believe, based on what I've read, that the Etruscans were the one who created Rome rather than the other way around, this is like a really interesting hat trick. I don't know. Moving on. Aquila. What is the Aquila? Was a prominent symbol used in ancient Rome, especially as the standard of a Roman legion. A legionary known as an aquilifer, or the eagle bearer, carried this standard. Each legion carried one eagle. So I guess the objective was to make sure that this standard bearing the eagle didn't get captured in battle. Okay, the eagle had a quasi-religious importance to the Roman soldier, far beyond being merely a symbol of his legion. To lose a standard was extremely grave, and the Roman military went to great lengths both to protect a standard and to recover it if it were lost. After the annihilation of 3 legions in Teutoburg Forest, the Romans spent decades retaliating for the defeat while also attempting to recover the 3 lost eagles. No legionary eagles are known to have survived. However, other Roman eagles, either symbolizing imperial rule or used as funerary emblems, have been discovered. Okay, why am I talking about the eagle? Because it's a symbol of Jupiter. Okay? And it's a symbol of, it's a prominent symbol used in ancient Rome. And I think it's even a symbol of like the Roman Republic or something like that, right? This is interesting. And then I found this from the New York Times, of all places. And this is from 1928. All right, I want to read this to you. This is important. I couldn't find this anywhere but 1928, New York Times. Who was the author? Doesn't say. Okay. The eagle as a symbol of racial and national power dates back to the time of the Etruscans, the race that preceded the Romans. Rome, after the days of Marius, also adopted the eagle as its standard of legions. It was represented with outspread wings. Later, the Byzantine emperors adopted the double-headed eagle, which symbolized their claim to the Eastern and Western empires. Okay? I'm going to keep reading. In the 14th century, the German emperors adopted the eagle as their national emblem. Other European countries followed Germany's lead. Prussia's emblem was distinguished by the black eagle, Poland's by a white eagle. Napoleon made the eagle represent imperial France. The emblem was dropped by the Bourbon rulers, but was restored by Louis Napoleon on January 1st, 1352. The United States chose the eagle as its national emblem in the days of Benjamin Franklin, who objected to the choice. In a letter to his daughter, Mrs. Sarah Bach, Franklin, who was then 87 years old, wrote, "For my own part, I wish the bald eagle had not been chosen as the representative of the country. He is a bird of bad moral character. He does not get his living honestly. You may have seen him perched on some dead tree where, too lazy to fish for himself, he watches the labor of the fishing hawk, and when that diligent bird has at length taken a fish and is bearing it to his nest for the support of his mate and young ones, the bald eagle pursues him and takes it from him. With all this injustice, he is never in good case, but like those among men who live by sharping and robbing, he is generally poor and often very lousy. Besides, he is a rank coward." Is Benjamin Franklin talking in code to his daughter? I don't know. And why can I not find this information anywhere other than the New York Times from a September issue 1928? You know how hard it was for me to find this? Oh my goodness, the lengths I go to for you all, but I enjoy every second. Okay, so we've got the fasces and we've got the eagle, and their origin is, according to the author of this, Etruria, both of them. And Etruria, the Etruscans, are the origin, I think, of the what we now know as the ancient Roman culture, the Roman Empire. Oh my goodness. Okay, what else we got? We got this. Okay, this is an example of Roman art. It is a orientalizing fibulae. Okay, so this is basically not really like a belt buckle. I think in Italian, the word fuba means belt buckle, so it's similar. It's meant to hold clothes together. And what you will notice is these designs on it. Please take particular note of the lions that we see here. Those are orientalizing lions. They come to us from the Near East, from these Mesopotamian cultures that the orientalizing, I guess, period of Etruscan culture they were trying to copy. Now, again, lions are still, to this day, symbols of royalty. And I don't know, I've mentioned it in my other videos. I will mention it in the future. But this is extremely important because, again, this is a status item. It's made of gold, as you can see. 675 to 650 BC gold, found in the Regolini Galassi tomb. Just check it out. This is how important kind of emblems or symbols of royalty and power were to these people. Okay, then we have the second one, Etruscan religion. Again, the Greek influence, the Roman conquest, seers and divinations. Etruscan religion comprises a set of stories, beliefs, and religious practices of the Etruscan civilization, heavily influenced by the mythology of ancient Greece and sharing similarities with concurrent Roman mythology and religion. As the Etruscan civilization was gradually assimilated into the Roman Republic, again, that seems to be the prevailing theory. Nobody even wants to talk about the possibility of the opposite happening, but whatever. From the 4th century BC, the Etruscan religion and mythology were partially incorporated into ancient Roman culture, following the Roman tendency to absorb some of the local gods and customs of conquered lands. The first attestations of an Etruscan religion can be traced back to the Villanovan culture. Interesting. The Greek influence, I've already kind of talked about it. You can read this on your own. The Roman conquest, okay, and the sources. Again, the mythology is evidenced by a number of sources in different media. For example, representations on large numbers of pottery, inscriptions, and engraved scenes on the Prenestine cistae, ornate boxes, and on specula, ornate hand mirrors. Currently, some 24 fascicles of the Corpus Speculorum Etruscorum have been published. Specifically, Etruscan mythological and cult figures appear in the Lexicon Iconographicum Mythologiae Classicae. Etruscan inscriptions have recently been given more authoritative presentation by Helmut Rix's Etruskische Texte. Okay, cool. They were obsessed with divination and seers, okay, and they believed in intimate contact with divinity. They did nothing without proper consultation with the gods and signs from them. Again, I don't believe this for 1 second. I think this was just window dressing for them, having an excuse to just do whatever they wanted to do, and they said the gods wanted it or the gods willed it. Okay, these practices were taken over in total by the Romans. All right. Again, you can keep reading this on your own, but I just wanted to sort of provide this for you as further reading material if you're interested. Next, Roman gods and goddesses. This is a page, I think, about learning Latin, if that's what you want to do in school. And I wanted this for the chart that you see here, the major divinities in Greek, Etruscan, and Roman religion. As you can see, there's where's Jupiter? Here he is. He's the first one. Zeus in Greek, Tin or Tinia in Etruscan, and Roman Jupiter. And then we have where's the other one? Venus is Aphrodite in Greek, and Turan in Etruscan. What else do we have? Saturn. For some reason they don't have Saturn. I don't know why. They did believe in him, but this is obviously an incomplete list. They don't have Uranus either. I don't think they do, no. But you can use this as a resource if you'd like. The Capitoline Triad, Minerva, Jupiter, and Juno. There it is. And you've got these animals. Is that an owl? Is this a peacock or a turkey? I'm not sure. I have no idea. But this is a good resource. I want to keep it moving. I want to show you a model of an Etruscan temple. Very similar to a Greek temple, probably with a cella, a porch, everything that a Greek temple would have, except it's not marble. It's, I think, terracotta. So that's possibly why Etruscan temples don't really survive like the Greek ones do. I wanted to show you the Apollo of Veii, a life-size painted terracotta Etruscan statue of Apollo or Apollo, designed to be placed in the highest part of the temple. The statue was discovered in the Portonaccio sanctuary of ancient Veii, Latium, in what is now central Italy, and dates from circa 510 to 500 BC. It was created in the so-called International Ionic or late Archaic Etruscan style. Okay. And this is the archaic, I think this is the archaic smile that we're talking about here. The archaic smile comes to us directly from Greece, and the Etruscans are mimicking it here in their depictions of Apollo, the archaic smile. You can find a lot of archaic smiles on Koros figures in Greek culture. You can look those up in your own time. Koros was basically a youth, possibly a warrior, possibly an athlete. A lot of them were used as grave markers, but again, you can look into that in your own time. I want to show you the sarcophagus of the spouses, a tomb effigy considered one of the masterpieces of Etruscan art. Basically, it's a husband and a wife reclining on I guess, a couch of some kind, and they're supposed to be kind of at a party, um, just, luxuriating during a time of festivity. Okay, it's made out of terracotta. It was once brightly painted. It depicts a man and woman laying on a cline, a dining couch with cushions to help keep the spouses propped up, all of which has been stylized. Again, archaic period. They both have archaic smiles. And so on and so forth. There's different angles of it. Again, this is what they buried people in. This is what now their art makes them look like a fun-loving kind of group of people. No, they were constantly engaged in military campaigns. Constantly engaged in some kind of like fight for survival or whatever. But their art, you would never think. You would never ever think, because I don't see like too many depictions of battles or battle scenes in Etruscan art. But that doesn't mean that that wasn't the reality of what they were doing, on a daily basis. The Capitoline Wolf, a scene from the legend of the founding of Rome. Now, this is definitely considered an Etruscan work. It shows the she-wolf. Now, Romulus and Remus were raised by wolves, okay? And the she-wolf is suckling the mythical twin founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus. According to the legend, when King Numitor, grandfather of the twins, was overthrown by his brother Amulius in Alba Longa, the usurper ordered them to be cast into the Tiber River. I guess possibly is this a retelling of like Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus mythology? I don't know. They were rescued by the she-wolf that cared for them until a herdsman, Faustulus, found and raised them. The age and origin of the Capitoline wolf are controversial. The statue was long thought to be an Etruscan work from the 5th century BC, with the twins added in the late 15th century AD, probably by sculptor Antonio del Polaulo. However, through radiocarbon and thermoluminescence dating, suggested that the wolf portion of the statue may have been cast between 1021 and 1153. These results are inconsistent, and there is yet no consensus for a revised dating. In a conference about this theme, most academics supported an ancient Etruscan origin. This is weird. This is very weird. And an analysis of the metals suggests that its lead comes from a mining place that is not known to have operated during medieval times. For some reason, they really, really want this thing to be Etruscan, even though there are people who are arguing that it might not be. I don't know why. Again, this is very suspicious to me. Something about this myth about the founding of Rome and Romulus and Remus and the she-wolf and all of this stuff is absolutely central to whatever the Romans wanted people to think about them. I don't know why. I really don't know why. The image of the she-wolf suckling Romulus and Remus is a symbol of Rome since ancient times, and one of the most recognizable icons of ancient mythology. The sculpture has been housed since 1471 in the Palazzo dei Conservatori on the Campidoglio, the ancient Capitoline Hill, Rome, Italy, and many replicas are in various places around the world. Okay. All right, you can read about the attribution and dating on your own and the history and whatever. This is the symbol of the founding of Rome, and it's supposed to be Etruscan in origin. This makes me very curious and very suspicious. I don't know about y'all, but make of it what you will. The orator, Oringatore, Ole Metelle, is an Etruscan bronze sculpture from the late 2nd or early 1st century BC. If you remember the timeline, where's the timeline? Periods. So this is like 2nd century BC, this is the Hellenistic phase. And this is when the Etruscans were more or less, according to what we've been told, no, not that yet, according to what we've been told, on their way out. Okay. Aulus Metellus was an Etruscan senator in the Roman Republic, originally from Perugia or Cortona. The Aulus Metellus sculpture was found in 1566, with the exact location being debated, but all sources agree the sculpture was found either in or around Lake Trasimeno in the province of Perugia, on the border between Umbria and Tuscany. 177 kilometers from Rome, the statue is exhibited in the National Archaeological Museum of Florence. Okay. He's standing in contrapposto. That's directly from the Greeks. He has senator boots called calcius. Is a mid-weight outdoor walking shoe boot worn in ancient Rome. Okay, so people of status, specifically senators, wore these kinds of boots, and they were made of red leather. Well, well, well. Okay? Well, 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 well. And he's the orator because he's depicted as, giving a speech of some kind. All right? What else is here? The hair, okay, the left arm. The statue wears a ring on its left ring finger, which is believed to be a scarab ring. Scarab ring, okay. Since the statue was made out of 7 parts, you can see the seams where they were attached to each other. Okay, the inscription. This is the important part because this is a talking object. On the Aulus Metellus statue, there's an inscription written in the Etruscan language. The inscription reads, I can't read Etruscan, but it says, to or from Oli Metelli, the son of Vel and Vessi, Tenine, set up this statue as a votive offering to Sans by deliberation of the people. Okay, so he's a votive offering. What's a votive offering? A votive offering is one or more objects displayed or deposited without the intention of recovery or use in a sacred place for religious purposes. Such items are a feature of modern and ancient societies and are generally made in order to gain favor with supernatural forces. So a votive offering is also like a person being there without having to be there. So the statue or the figure or whatever is like a good enough substitute for somebody's presence, at least with regard to pleasing the gods. Okay. A votive offering is an object given to any god of a pan-Hellenic religion as payment for the successful fulfillment of a prayer. There's also that aspect of it. It could be anything from a handmade effigy, or if the giver is the offering is wealthy, a commissioned statue. The idea of the statue being a votive is debated, and some historians say the statue was an honorary statue intended for public viewing rather than offering to the gods. Okay, so they can't come to a agreement about that. But I wanted you to see this. This is the Etruscan, a sort of visual representation of the Etruscan civilization kind of finally morphing completely into the Roman civilization. I wanted you to get a look at that. Also wanted to show you a statue of George Washington by French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon from the late 18th century. It's based on a life mask and other measurements of George Washington. And what I really want you to notice is, can I enlarge this? Yes, I can. This enormous thing right next to him, that is the fasces. Okay, he's got a walking stick here. I don't know what that refers to. Is this religious significance? I'm not sure. But there's a fasces to Washington's left. His cloak is covering the top of the fasces, so where like normally there would maybe be an axe sticking out, we don't see that. Okay, but is he covering the axe? Is the axe there at all? I don't know. But where an axe normally would be on the fasces, as I showed you, hold on, like as you see this here, right? Where an axe normally would be, we see a sword. And behind the sword, we see a plow. This thing sticking out here and then extending to be behind Washington and behind his feet down here. That is a plow. The Etruscans and their symbolism for magisterial power and what have you are still with us. They're still with us. So we've got George Washington here looking regal with the fasces, the sword, and a plow. What is the message behind this? I don't know. Then there's this one. Now, there's no fasces here, but it's another statue of George Washington, known as the Enthroned Washington, a large marble sculpture by Horatio Greenough, commissioned by the United States Congress in 1832 for the centennial of U.S. President George Washington's birth. Exhibited in the rotunda of the United States Capitol and then moved to the Capitol's East Lawn. In 1843, since 1964, it has been in the National Museum of American History. Okay. Horatio Greenough, I don't know, based the enthroned Washington on Phidias' statue of Zeus at Olympia. Remember? Zeus and Jupiter, same god. It was one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, which was destroyed in late antiquity. And this is also a talking object. Look at this. It has an inscription in Latin, but talking objects basically, as we know them, come to us from Etruscan. They have origins also in ancient Greek statuary, but we're talking about the Etruscans here and their specific kind of inscriptionary sort of things they did with works of art. And it says, I'm not going to read the Latin, but it says, Horatio Greenough made this image as a great example of freedom, which will not survive without freedom itself. Okay. So let's take a better look at this thing. There are no fasces that I can see, but he definitely looks like this statue of Zeus at Olympia, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Apparently it was destroyed. Here it is, a drawing of it anyway. Interesting, no? Oh, well, would you look at that? Zeus's staff here has an eagle at the top, right? Which later became the Roman Aquila. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, last but not least, we're almost at 2 hours. This. Remember, I showed you the last one first. George Washington on the front, and the eagle on the back, the Aquila. And what does the eagle have in its claws, in its talons? A fasces. Okay, and if this below the eagle is a laurel wreath, oh good heavens. Oh good heavens. Hold on, let me check about the laurel wreath. Okay, I quickly looked it up, and yes, this thing beneath the eagle's talons and the fasces looks an awful lot like a laurel wreath, which again goes back to Rome. So our founding fathers here in the United States, they took a great deal of their inspiration from ancient Rome. And I don't know if the laurel comes to us from the Etruscans, but I know for sure that the fasces and the Aquila come from the Etruscan civilization and culture. So make of that what you will. Like I said, this was going to be a long one. I think I covered everything. I wanted you to be aware of this. Why? Because, again, we see the eagle. We see things that can be related to the fasces in both Lynch and Kubrick. The axe, definitely, in the Shining, and the wood or the 12 rods of wood that are bundled into the fasces. They're supposed to be originally the 12 city-states of the Etruscans. Again, remember when I said that David Lynch in Twin Peaks, he says that, or not he, but in the show, the Black Lodge and or the Red Room can only be entered by a mortal during the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and that place is accessed in Ghostwood Forests, and it's a place that is surrounded in a circular formation of 12 sycamore trees. Okay, Jupiter, Saturn, exactly 12 trees. What are the odds? And the axe is kind of there in Twin Peaks, even though I don't know if we're going to see it. I don't remember seeing it in the first episode, but it's kind of there. It's there without being there. Its presence is there without David Lynch having to really articulate or really emphasize its presence. Why? Because we're dealing with a logging town, and that's what you use. That's what's traditionally used to cut down trees, axes. So, you guys, I've done all of this. I hope I did it. I hope I did a little something. I don't know. And I will leave you, this is what a laurel wreath looks like. Okay, there are several different versions. Of course, the ones that we're most familiar with are the ones that have to do with Caesar or Roman characters, where the laurel wreath is kind of a crown and refers to victory. It's a round wreath made of connected branches and leaves of a bay laurel. An aromatic broadleaf evergreen, or later from spineless butcher's broom, or cherry laurel. It is a symbol of triumph and is worn as a chaplet around the head or as a garland around the neck. Okay, it's traced back to ancient Greece. In Greek mythology, the god Apollo, who is patron of lyrical poetry, musical performance, and skill-based athletics, is conventionally depicted wearing a laurel wreath on his head in all three roles. Okay. All right. Ancient laurel wreaths are most often depicted as a horseshoe shape. Modern versions are usually complete rings. Okay, and it refers to victory. Okie dokie. All right. I don't think they make these quarters anymore. I think they stopped making them in 1998. But anyway, so I don't know what image I should leave you with. My goodness. I threw a lot at you. I know I did. Possibly the Capitoline wolf. Ooh, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Or Apulu. Or the temple. Or... what's this? Not the Etruscan religion, but this thing, I don't know. There's a lot. I covered a lot. I wanted to cover a lot. But, this is it. This is what I could do quickly. Yeah, this is quickly for me. Regarding the Etruscan civilization, Etruscan culture, Etruscan art, Etruscan religion, Etruscan language, and how I believe it relates to what I'm studying over here in my little corner on my channel regarding the interpretation of films and filmmakers such as those by our Stanley and recently our David. Let me know. I might be revisiting this again, but let me know what you think. I can't wait to read what you have to say in the comments. So, you guys, I think that's it. I've talked for over 2 hours. I'm going to go. I forgot to do my church announcements. So, returning viewers, thank you for returning. New viewers, thank you for being new. Subscribers, thank you for subscribing. Each and every one of you wonderful people, whatever reason you have for being here, I appreciate it. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. And again, can't wait to read the comments. Let me know what you think. And that's that, I guess. So hopefully I'll be back maybe in a couple of days with another Twin Peaks video or another shining, understanding video. We shall see. But until then, please, do whatever you can to stay well and stay sane and stay centered and balanced and whatever. Because I know I'm going to have trouble with that. But until next time, hopefully I'll have good news for you next time regarding my own situation. But until next time, you guys, until the next time I find yet another reason to talk at you, I will go ahead and bid you bye-bye. So, bye-bye, everybody.